Welcome to the Growth Plus Exit podcast, where owners of privately held middle market companies talk about founding, scaling, and exiting their businesses successfully. Learn how to maximize and monetize your business on your own terms. Let's get started.
I'm Heather Bennett, your host for the Growth Plus Exit podcast, featuring business owners talking about founding, scaling, growing, and exiting their businesses. Past guests on the Growth Plus Exit podcast include Matt Vukov, CEO of Talentcraft, Whitney Opperman, General Manager of Opperman & Son, and Jeff Janicek, founder of InnoFlight. This episode is brought to you by Newport LLC, a team of seasoned C-suite executives who help CEOs and leaders of privately held companies grow, de-risk, and exit their businesses successfully. Newport LLC is a winner of the prestigious Inc. Magazine 2025 Power Partner Award, a list of elite B2B companies from across the globe. See the entire list at inc.com Power Partner Awards. To learn more about Newport, visit us at newportllc.com or find us on LinkedIn. Before introducing today's guest, I would like to thank David J.P. Fisher, D-Fish, and Andy Crestadina for introducing me to my guest quite a few years ago. You can find both of them on LinkedIn or, of course, reach Andy at orbitmedia.com. Today's guest is Mark Bealin. Mark Bealin is the founder and CEO of SearchLab. SearchLab is a digital and online marketing agency driven to find better ways to market online. SearchLab specializes in local SEO and PPC and is an award-winning agency recognized on the Inc. 5000 list not once, but 3 times. Mark's expertise in digital...
Yeah.
4 times.
Yeah.
Mark.
My thing needs to be updated, I think, but yeah.
I think you do. That's exciting. Congratulations. Mark's expertise in both digital, online marketing, and coaching high school football helped Mark pursue his passion for mentoring as an executive board member with Chicago's Accelerator Incubator, the Entrepreneur Organization. And we'll learn more about that later. Mark, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Heather. It's good to be with a friend. This is fun.
I know. Like I said, you were one of the people I was like, I have to get Mark on this show. So let's start at the beginning. SearchLab. How did that get started?
Well, I could do the short version or a long version, but I think we've got a long form podcast. So I'll try and make it interesting all the way through. I had a different agency is the answer. In 2009, I started a company. That one had partners. And so I was 25 when that started. And there was 8 years there. So it was like 33 when I left. And so that's basically the story of person's very different at 25 and 33. So I was single and no kids when I started it. We did fine. Like it was a good story. But once I got married and especially once I started to have children, my desire to really scale an operation and go to the next level with it was like, yeah, it was all consuming. So I started to have some conflict with my partners at that point. And then my wife got pregnant with our second one. So the story I tell a lot about SearchLab is that I went and put in notice with my partner, and then went home and my wife's water broke. So I put in notice and had a son like within 24 hours of each other. And so in a lot of ways, SearchLab is exactly as old as my son, but it was great. So we officially burned the boats in March of 2017. I had no other job besides this. I'm the only owner of it still today. And in the first year, we were like a nice little local story. I definitely was trying to go to every networking thing that possible and get to know everybody in Chicago. And it was a wonderful time. Like we did everything, I didn't know all the mistakes I was making them, but we worked really hard and we developed, I think, a little bit of a reputation in Chicago for being, going above and beyond, like we really would try and put our customers, like they just do anything for our customers. So slowly but surely, like we just had to scale. And so we hit kind of a growth, like a plateau And then in 19, like maybe in 19, and then we started to really build out. There's a couple of things. We started to really like niche down into the service offerings we had. So I used to do a lot of things. I used to make websites, organic social, whole bunch of other things. And we really started to work with coaches and narrowed down into like, hey, we want to be a local SEO. It's really what we found was like coaches can really help you with this. Is like we were missing the forest from the trees. So you can a coach can come in and be like, who are your most profitable clients? Who are the clients you're most proud of the work you're doing? What is your team like the best? And they all kind of, you started to do this pattern detection. Found, oh man, these are all like local SEO campaigns. So we really started to focus on that. And that made me interesting, I think. It's like before that, being a generalist was not that interesting. Like having a niche expertise allowed me to start to get speaking opportunities and podcasting and everything like that. And slowly but surely, we started to, through speaking, I actually found people who were even more well known than me that came aboard, and then from there, we've just kind of taken off with the personalities on the team. So we really built a leadership team, and that like late 19 through 20, like while COVID was going on, and it was an amazing time. So that's kind of the beginning stories. I think hopefully that gets you. I'm probably leaving out some gory details, but that's at least the broad strokes.
So what about like those first couple years? Because I always find that's like a point that people was difficult. Like what were some of those hurdles that you had to get over?
It was really tough. So in in a lot of ways, I look back on it very fondly. Like we had a lot of fun and we worked long hours, and there's a little engine that could. Part of the part of the problem was that I would be like the leader in every department. So I was like the head of SEO, the head of PPC, the head of HR, the CFO, the CEO. Like I had every job, and eventually you just can't outwork that system. It doesn't go. And again, you see, like if you would have asked me in like 2016, what do you do? Like we just met at a cocktail party. I would have said I'm a digital marketer, or I'm an SEO, something like that. But like what I really needed to do is like change my psychology from I'm a digital marketer to I'm an entrepreneur. I really own a company, and I need to hire people and fill these roles and start to work on the business, not in the business, right? Like start to really get more of a true like entrepreneur type mindset. And that was even though just like psychologically that flip was really important. And I think we ran it about as far as I could. Like it was, the car where the RPMs are like to here. I was going like that, like 80-hour weeks and stuff like that. I was going about as hard as I could, and not. I was working hard, not smart. I was doing stuff that really I shouldn't be doing. And so learning how to delegate, learning how to hire a team and empower a team. And it was that was really the turning point for me.
And you talked about like your like that hiring part. Um, what what were you looking for with those first couple hires? You talked about them having the expertise in the subject matter, but like what else are you looking for or were you looking for when you were trying to
And
get those key for
yeah,
initial hires in?
yeah, it's an interesting story. So a lot of my leadership team, I was able to get them because of COVID. So like I'm on I need to credit Will Scott when I say this. Will Scott's a friend of mine, but he introduced me to this quote from Warren Buffett that's like, when other people are stingy, be greedy. When other people are greedy, be stingy. And everyone was kind of like laying people off, and there was just a lot of talent out there. And we had a really good run, but like COVID did impact me. Like it wasn't like we had no, client loss or revenue loss because of it. But I just looked at it as an opportunity to really uh, find some top talent. And so we had Greg before COVID and Greg Gifford, who's like very well known in local SEO. But the other two, like I went Greg, then Don, who's our vice president of sales right now, and then Mark Urban. The other two were all COVID hires. So it was like those were pivotal moves. What I was looking for, um, if I could try and put myself back in my shoes then, was one, they had done what I was trying to do. So we were whatever, like revenue can be helpful here. We were like, oh, whatever, barely over $1 million revenue company. And we wanted to go to like $3 million. Like that was kind of my plan. Well, they had done that. Like they knew that run and they had an appetite to do it again. And it was exciting. Like we were like, we were all on board and it was a very scrappy, small team that slowly just started to build and build and build. So really identifying people who had done the thing that I wanted to do and had success with it and had an appetite to do it again, I would say was really important to me. And then also we needed some buzz, like getting Greg. I talked to a fellow SEO who was really like, um, better friends with Greg than me. And he said, if you hire Greg Gifford, like tomorrow, your life is going to be very different than today. And he was right. Like really from that point on, like we got a lot of buzz. Like it was the, sort of brand building. I had this idea that conference speaking was a really good way to get leads and to build a brand. And it certainly has been for us. Like that turned out to be accurate.
Yeah, so talk about that because a lot of times with business leaders, especially founders or bootstrapped entrepreneurs building their companies, as they get bigger and bigger, they have to take on that role as the face of the company and to get them to have the media training and do the conferences. How, it sounds like you were able to hire people who were already comfortable in that space,
Mhm.
but what did that look like when you were like, okay, guys, here's our plan. This is how we're going to share our brand, and we're going to go to market through the conferences. Like, what did that look like?
It's a very interesting story. So I was gung ho about trying to be a speaker, thought leader. Um, our mutual friend Andy, I kind of watched him do it, and I was like, okay, I got to be able to do that. Like that's the way I could visualize how this would all work. And so it's like a catch 22. It's harder than you'd think to get selected to speak at a conference. Like you have to fill out so many applications. I was nobody. Like I had no reputation. They very often the question is like, where else have you spoken? And so I'm like, nowhere. Like I need to speak somewhere so that I can answer this question better. So finally I had some like breakthroughs and I got to speak at some events that were great state of search and things around Chicago and stuff like that. And so I started to practice. And one of the things I realized very quickly was number one, I didn't love it. Like I didn't love like as much as I thought I would. And that other people who were at these conferences were just hungrier than me. Like I could kind of tell. There's like a very specific moment when I remember being like, that guy wants it more than me. Like it was just I so I was kind of like stuck. I'm like, okay, well, this is our philosophy that this is going to happen, and I'm gonna have to like tough it up or tough it out or level up or I just went through my head and it's like, well, I think there's an opportunity here. I had interesting stories. Like I had a lot of things that were breakthroughs in my company happened in the middle of the night. Um, I'm a terrible sleeper. And so it was my turn. My daughter Annie was a baby at that time. It was my turn to get up with her. And I was going through Twitter while had the bottle in her mouth or whatever. And I saw, Greg Gifford is available in his email address. Brittany Muller posted it. And I was like the right amount drowsy and the right amount courageous. And I just like emailed him and said, hey, you want to talk about coming to work here? And fortunately, like we had a conversation. First one was like just kind of boilerplate, nothing really major. And then the big thing was that he was keynoting a conference that I was speaking at. And so then once we met in person, like we met for lunch, I feel like he didn't start working for me at that point, but like that's sort of in my memory, like that's the beginning of us working together. It just worked really well. And so I was like, okay, I have other roles and responsibilities here. I can just like lay back and let everybody else do the heavy lifting. But yeah, for me, that was the way to get my unique ability and then still honor what we thought was the best way to grow an agency.
I love it. And I agree that is such a great way, especially when it is a specific type of expertise you're trying to demonstrate. Why not go and share it, get some
Yeah.
attention? Okay, so you talked about your middle of the night revelations. What are some of those other middle of the night or not turning points that have
Yeah.
helped you, especially in the last couple of years?
So the big one is that I had this podcast, Suds and Search, that is on mothballs right now. Hopefully we'll bring it back at some point.
But it's really
But
good, and
yeah,
listeners should go out and pick it up because it's impressive
okay,
who Mark was able to get for guests.
right.
I really enjoyed.
So yeah, we basically interviewed the top digital marketers in their area of expertise, and there's over 200 episodes, I think. So it was awesome. Um, so I had an episode coming up. This is again during COVID with Mark Irvin, who was at that time he was coming off just an amazing year. So they actually have these awards for PPC experts. We are really strong in local SEO, but needed the PPC like leader, and so um, I had this interview, no intention of hiring Mark at that time or whatever, but he was extremely accomplished. So he was PPC Heroes, creates this list of like the top PPC experts in the world. He was number one in 2019, and I was talking to him in 2020. So he was on that list every year since 2015 until they stopped putting out the list, and then he was Microsoft's North American Personality of the Year in 2019. So he was like a big guest. And I did a bunch of research for it, and I loved how he wrote. Like I thought he was a really clever writer, and he had access to these really big data sets because he worked for WordStream. And so it was really interesting how he thought. And so then we had this podcast scheduled, and right before it was going to happen, I got word like Mark may not show. WordStream just did a big layoff, and he was caught up in it. And so I was disappointed, but then hopped on, whatever, the Zoom or whatever, and waited. He was 5 minutes late, so I thought he wasn't going to show. And then he came on, and he was hilariously funny. The part where you like talk before and after, it was just like effortless and great. And we had a really good show. And then again, I went to sleep, and I just couldn't sleep. And at like 1 o'clock in the morning, I messaged Greg, and I said, like, we should hire Mark. Like, why wouldn't we hire Mark if he's looking for a gig, we should bring him in. And Greg was like, you're not going to get Mark Irvin. Like, you're lucky you got me. Like, there's no way you're going to get this guy. He's not in automotive. Like, we have a lot of clients in automotive. Like, he's not in automotive. He's going to go work for Google or Microsoft. Like, there's no chance. And I was like, yeah. I still sent Mark a message like, will you talk to me about a job at SearchLab? And then, fortunately, Greg saw the episode of Mark and me, and he said, I see what you mean. Like, he said something about like he liked to make little things big things. And he was a very early employee at WordStream, which grew to be a huge company and sold to Gannett. And so that kind of like middle of the night, like just thinking about things and this conversation and this person, I just couldn't stop thinking about it. And so I worked with Mark was instrumental in our scale and in growing the company. And he died tragically in May of 2024. So that was a huge loss for our industry and for me personally and our company. But like he was, and we still like all our, awards and everything are named for him and stuff like that. So that was a huge loss. But like that whole period of time was unbelievable of working with him and scaling. And he was basically running. All the managers reported to him by the end there.
Yeah, definitely a loss to the industry. And speaking of industry, not all of our listeners are familiar with all of the marketing terms. So PPC is pay per click,
Yes.
and it's just a method of charging for advertising. Um,
Right.
but yeah, Mark, that is a loss. But interesting turning point for you to think about like what happens going forward, and what a great person to have on board during that high level of growth. So let's talk about what's next. Like what's your vision for the company? Where do you see SearchLab going? I know we are in what I'm calling the Wild West of marketing right now. SEO is not what it was. We've got AI and the algorithms are all messed up. Nothing works, any of the ad things. So social media is a interesting situation right now. So, so what comes next? What's the future for SearchLab, given this really wild west of marketing that we're in right now?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I could probably more easily answer the question with just like my methodology for how we think about these things. So, um, there's this concept. I'm like preaching this everywhere. So if anybody on my team hears this, they're gonna roll their eyes. But I'm a big fan of Clayton Christensen, who was a Harvard professor, and he wrote a book called "Competing Against Luck," which is about jobs to be done. So, jobs to be done theory basically says, in layman's terms, like your customer isn't buying a quarter inch drill bit; they're buying a quarter inch hole. And if you can figure out a better way to get them a quarter inch hole, they will drop the, the drill bit people as fast as anything. So I think this is now a time for us to really, what does that mean for us? Like if I don't think SEO is still like a very important channel for all our customers. And then disruption, like if you said like the same metrics in leading indicators that we've used for years are not germane anymore. They don't really tell the same story that they used to. But I think it's still a very, very important channel. What we really want to get is a customer centered approach where we're moving, skating where the puck is moving, like a Wayne Gretzky line. And the only way to do that is to have a whole bunch of conversations with your customers. What's keeping that up at night? How are they getting new deals? How are people finding them on ChatGPT and stuff like that? And then working backwards from the customer. So if we're really finding that they're embracing AI or their customers are embracing AI, then which they are, then we need to have an answer to that. And in the meantime, I guess it's very much, it reminds me of early days of SEO where there isn't like, I'm not going to come on here and be like, this is how you rank, where I could do that more in Google, give you some tips and some tactics that would be high level, but it would be like, it'd be good for your audience. Right now, it's very much a testing phase. It's a sharing phase. And like the great thing about the SEO community is we're pretty used to sharing information pretty freely. And so we're contributing to that. Another teammate I haven't mentioned, Dane Seville, who's doing amazing work on AI overviews and educating our main client vertical is automotive. So in particular, how it's impacting automotive. But it's the job to be done. It's like what is the equivalent? So they're not going to buy SEO forever, or they're not going to buy PPC forever. That's fine. But what is we're not selling quarter inch drill bits, we're selling quarter inch holes. It's kind of the way that we try and think about it and put the customer in the center of that.
No, I love that. And it's always, one of my specialties is target marketing. And it's
Mhm.
always focused on, like you said, getting into the head of the customer and what do they need? What do they want? What do they need that they didn't even know they wanted?
Yes,
So it's, I think it's a very fun time. And yeah, I would equate it to some of those big shifts in marketing that have happened over the years where you have to go, okay, the tools have changed, the KPIs have changed, how we're measuring has changed, but that's okay. The end
I
goal is
agree.
just getting that consumer what they want. So I love the way you
Yeah.
phrase that. That's perfect. Tell me about your proudest moment with the company. So
Mm, I don't know. I have a hard time with uh, thinking backward. I'm like, I do like, I'm like, I hope it's coming, like, I guess is the answer. But, we had a pretty amazing run in like 21, 22. There are these awards called the US Search Awards that are, there's plenty of awards where you just like pay and you get the award, but the US Search Awards are like the one in my industry that I want to win. And in 21, we applied for them. We applied for two, and we were shortlisted for both, and then won both. And then the next year we were, Microsoft's Global Emerging Partner of the Year, which was 22. So there was like this amazing run of award winning where I went like I think we really got something here. Like, this is not just like a ragtag operation anymore. I have a real company, and third parties are acknowledging like we do really great work. And that was a very exhilarating moment for me. I think just just the fact that a company as big as Microsoft knew about my little company and like was really cool. And so it's probably vain. I probably shouldn't care that much about awards, but like getting an award was like gratifying to me. And I do think that like hopefully my proudest moment is down the road, and we just keep setting the bar higher.
I love that. That's I like the idea of the proudest moment coming down the pipeline. But it is good to celebrate when you get that recognition, especially from your own industry. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Um, so let's talk about the entrepreneur organization. Tell me how you got involved in that, because part of what I think this podcast brings to our listeners is learning about that entrepreneurship journey and what it means to not only be an entrepreneur, but then once you've created this award-winning company, is to reach back and say, okay, what entrepreneurs are we going to pull along with us?
Yeah. It's my huge passion project. So I love EO. And I joined in 2019. So you may know, I think you know the Digital Third Coast people, but a friendly competitor of mine, let's put it that way. Like we do similar work. I don't really remember being pit against them in a bunch of you know proposals or something like that, but they do the same thing we do, and they're part of this Andy Crestodina, David JP Fisher mafia. Like we're all friends, and I had been just the whole way I had grown at the beginning was like I could tell about like we had sort of uh, a hack where we like had a bunch of print yellow pages newspaper people who we would get their clients, and then we'd pay them really big commissions. But that was unsustainable for reasons I could get into. And the other thing that I did a ton was just networking. I just went to every mixer, cocktail hour. Like I was really, really trying to get to know people and set up a referral network. And so I had just like burned myself out of that. Like, at a certain point, it was just like, I can't do this. I need to figure out one thing to really get to really get involved in. And so honestly, like Taylor's like, well, you got to do this EO thing. And then Chris Madden and his partner own Brian Davidson own Matchnode, and they were like, yeah, we wouldn't have done anything like we have if it wasn't for EO. It's like, well, what is it? Like, I don't know what you guys are talking about. And they're like, just trust me, just join. And so I went to like a information gathering session, and I qualified, and I probably didn't even totally know what I was getting myself into when I joined. It's just this is a good story about the value of friends who just go like, just trust me, you're gonna like this. And if you have good friends who push you in the right direction, great things will happen. So I joined and just drank the Kool-Aid right away. And the story I tell a lot is like, I have a best friend who's been my best friend my whole life, and so our parents are friends. So there's like pictures of us in diapers together, and we went to college together, roomed in college. We roomed in Chicago together. We set up in each other's wedding. He has a million embarrassing stories about me, and I have a million about him. But one day we were playing golf, and I was telling him like, I really hope there's a check on Monday because I have to make payroll like on Wednesday. And this friend of mine who like knew everything about me, he worked for Bank of America at the time. Like he didn't know any. I could just tell like on his face, like he didn't know what I was talking about. Like that was a truly like an entrepreneur type story that I'm telling you there. And you just felt lonely. Like there was no one in my friend group really. Some people started companies with like much smaller lifestyle kind of businesses, and none of my friends were trying to do this. And no one in my family really. My brother recently started a company, interestingly, but at the time, nobody in my family had done this. So it was just like, I don't know anybody who I could talk to about payroll stress or imposter syndrome or loneliness at the top or this all consuming desire to grow something. And so once I joined EO, I was like, oh my gosh, all these people are going through what I'm going through. And I just loved it. And so people in totally different, like people who are in manufacturing or something like that. We experience similar sorts of like struggles and challenges of leadership that that it just became an unbelievable venue for me to go to. And I've like, I serve on the board. I'm like the current president elect, which means I have no real responsibility this year, but I will have a lot next year. And I've helped spearhead the accelerator program that you mentioned at the beginning, which is one of my favorite things. But that basically the accelerator program there for businesses that are under $1 million. You have to make $1 million a year of revenue to join EO. If you're like $250,000, so you have some revenue up to 999,999, you can join the accelerator program with the intention is like get you to scale up into EO. And so I worked with these entrepreneurs. It was unbelievable. I coached for 2 years. So I was a coach for like a small pod, like maybe 4 or 5 people, and 2 people graduated from my pod. So that was a proud day. I was very proud of that. And then after that, for 2 years, I oversaw the program and helped it grow.
That's amazing. And I love the fact that you were able to understand that your networking needed to be focused and to
Yeah.
take a step back and say, I think the initial way to go about networking is literally what you did. Just try everything, go to everything, meet tons of people. But then after you've been doing that for a while, to be able to step back and say, okay, where's really the best way to spend my time? And EO definitely sounds like a great organization. I've got a few people I'm mentoring, and I'm like, I don't even know if they know
Yeah.
this exists. I need to throw them your way for
Yeah.
sure.
Please do.
Um, yeah, awesome stuff. So, um, few things on you personally. Like, where are you from, and what was it like growing up, and what do you think led you to this entrepreneurial mindset? Since you said there's not a lot of people in your world, like what do you think inspired that?
I've thought about this a lot. I don't know because I grew up in just outside of Detroit in Troy, Michigan. It was kind of a quintessential American childhood. I had great parents and I was kind of a jock kid and liked to play any sport that you could play. Um, there are some stories that are be like, okay, that kind of sounds like an entrepreneur. I hated school. Like I didn't want to, I was very much like a nonconformist in that way. And it drove my parents crazy and my teachers crazy. They'd be like, it seems like if you applied yourself, you'd do well. And I just couldn't make myself do it. Um, I would work hard. Like I'd work hard enough to be able to play sports and get my dad off my back. Like that's how I approach school, which is a terrible way to approach it, but that is the truth. And it's just like kind of a nonconform. Like I was really nonconformist, kind of a rebel without a cause. I'm not sure I would have liked myself, but that's who I was. And yeah, I had certain things like I enjoyed like selling baseball cards and setting up little like goofy ass businesses and stuff like that. But it was nothing. I'm not like I'd be lying if I said that I was super into starting companies or stuff like that when I was young. I didn't. But I've thought a lot about that, and I think there's a couple of things that were interesting to me. Being from Detroit is like people from Detroit will understand this, I think, better than other people. But it was just a town that just felt like it was like falling apart, and everybody it's such a one trick pony town. I just felt like, man, like my dad didn't work for the car companies, but like his by far biggest client was General Motors. If they fired his company, like it was basically like he worked for him. And so there's a lot of the tentacles were really, really long. And I just was like, I want to be in control of my own destiny a little more than this. And so I think that was a big part of it. It was just like, I don't want to rely on, some industry or some big company. Um, and I don't like I wanted to get out of Detroit. And um, I had like a talent for like I had a lot of friends. I was pretty social. I had some leadership abilities, I would say, but I was sort of unremarkable. And then even after I started my company, I'd be like, you wouldn't want to have me on the podcast. I didn't have anything really interesting to say. it really wasn't until I had kids that I really started, I think, to be dedicated and embrace this. And since then, I've been, I think, proud of the work I've done. And like, I think there's more interesting stuff to talk about.
Yeah, kids do that to you, change your perspective on things, and I would say often in a very good way. So as a successful entrepreneur and leader of your company, what are some of your daily rituals that help you to stay strong so you can wake up in the middle of the night and come up with those amazing ideas?
That's great. So I stink at routines. I'm not good at it. I have, this is probably like 10-month old information. So it's not, don't do the thing, but I've gotten really into um, extreme endurance events. So part of the challenge was that I like think of the story that I just told you. I have 3 kids. I coach football. I'm going to every networking thing on earth. I live in Chicago. Destroyed my body basically. My health was in terrible shape, and I could kind of see what was coming for me down the road. Like if I kept the people who work with me, like people who go to a lot of conferences and trade shows and stuff like that. It's just not a healthy, not a good lifestyle, right? And Mark dying was a pretty good wake up call. It probably was the catalyst for these changes, but I really didn't start in earnest until, oh, like anybody else, like start the New Year's resolution really got me going. But I joined another group called Adventure Club, and I've gotten really into fitness and endurance sports and stuff like that. And so the the pressure to go through like very hard event like a marathon or a you know we did this thing called rim to rim to rim of the Grand Canyon, where you like hike down and across the Grand Canyon and then back in 20 hours. It's really hard. It's 44 miles and a lot of elevation. And that got me going. So I now like really, really believe once it's like, oh yeah, all those people online were right. Like you get exercise, you sleep better, you think better, everything goes well. So that's become a really important part of my life. And this this thing where I want to try and fill up um, buckets. So I've got a lot of my life is like it's how I describe that networking. I get very sprawled, I get very busy, and then I find tools that get me more focused. So the other tool that I really use is I have like 8 priorities, and that's it. And I have a finance. They're the ones you'd think: financial, business, my marriage, my family. Um, and so I want to take my wife on 22 dates this year. I wanted to go on like 2 per month, and I'm giving myself slack in December. Like Christmas might be hard, right? So uh, and I assume there's gonna be 1 month where I get off track, and I'm on track for that. And so instead of
Wow.
being daily routines, like I like this. Okay, I have a year to get all this done. I wanted to do uh, like 4 adventures. I'm gonna do 4 adventures. I wanted to like uh, you know put in the bank X amount of money. I'm done with that. I've got that through. So like I really look at those things and how I'm doing toward those goals. And it just works better. I'm not a good daily routine person. I really am. I'm like, you should not take my advice. So I like looking at things in a longer time horizon works for me, and really figuring out what's the priority. And the beautiful thing about doing that, and this is kind of harsh, is I say no a lot more. I used to. So I was always like, my best friend gave a speech at my 40th birthday. He's like, Mark will say yes to anything. He will say yes to like, you want to go on a trip, invite Mark. You want to do this, like invite him. I always been yes, but now if it doesn't, it's this kind of tool I use to be like, and it's kind of like a tier 3 friend, tier 4 friend. Like I'm not gonna go that. Like I can't do it. It's not part of my goals. Like it's not gonna help me get there. Even just like things like I don't drink as much alcohol as I used to. Is like it's not gonna help me get my goals. I have fitness goals that I'm gonna try gas tomorrow if I'm having a bunch of cocktails. So um, all of that has led to a much better but I would say this is very new information, Heather, and I probably am not the person to advise people on routine or ritual, but I've loved this kind of way of doing it, which is like a longer time horizon versus every day I have to do something. I can't do it.
And I think that's so key is I think it's great that you're talking about it because a lot of times people say, well, I've never done that or that, but it's okay because you can pick up something new. And
Yeah.
I love the fact that you're approaching it from a very different perspective. It's not the what do I do on a daily basis? It's, you know what, give yourself some grace and get it done over amount of time. You know,
Right.
you can't paint a whole house in one day by yourself. It doesn't work that way.
That's it.
So,
That's it. Yeah.
okay, I have one last question, but before I ask it, I want to point people to your website at searchlabdigital.com or to reach out to you on LinkedIn. And then what was the website for EO? Because I have a feeling you're going to have people
Uh,
reaching out to you on that.
eochicago.org is
Perfect. Okay,
our
great.
website.
So the last question is, what is a hard lesson you learned? Or actually, I'd really like to hear what was the best piece of advice you've gotten from a mentor during the
Okay.
growth of your company?
Let me think about that. You know, I think it was good question. There's a lot. There's a lot to choose from, and there's a lot of the first question, mistakes. I got a lot. There's a lot more of that than great.
Yeah,
No,
I
I
think we
think
covered a lot of those. That's why I was like, no, I
yeah,
really want to hear about like what
yeah.
something one of your mentors have said to you that you were like, oh, yeah,
This is gonna sound bad. This is very much in the lane of my weaknesses, right? So if you potentially there are people who are listening to this who would not relate to this at all, but think of my weakness was finance. Plug in your own weakness, and this will hopefully make sense. So I was growing this company a lot, and I was like not making any money. I was like, we were had awesome top line, no bottom line, and started to work with a coach who now works for me, Noah, and we sat down. He's like, this is really impressive. This is really great. Like, I had some questions about, hey, are you doing sales forecasting, all that stuff? But he's like, all right, well, how much money do you have in the bank? And I was like, I know I can buy this lunch. Like, I don't know. And he was just like, oh my God, I don't know how you sleep at night. Like, this is crazy. And really, I hated it. Like, I can't tell you how much I hated the meeting where the bookkeeper goes through, all the lines and tells you how you did relatively. I would go and like kind of like pour water on my face and like people are counting on you paying attention, like get through this meeting. And it was so tricky. But, you know, once I was able to really understand how finance related to strategy and like every strategy needs to have some dollar signs on it or else it's not really a strategy. I could, I could absorb it and I could get excited about it. And it is the language of business. Like the accounting is the language of business. And so that from that moment on, I wouldn't say I was like great, but really, really embracing that uncomfortable, like I'm a marketer. I want to talk about, differentiation and branding and stuff like that. I don't want to talk about like, gross profit margin or something like that. But it really was important to just embrace this shortcoming I had. And people can go to, you can go get a master. Like I have a nephew who's like going to get a master's right now because he doesn't have tools in his toolbox. I wasn't able to do that. I had to like learn on the job how to do this. And I'm so happy I did. Like I'm in finance like most of the time now because it's where all the strategy is. Like it really makes sense. And now I'm not intimidated by it. Um, I'm not, like overwhelmed by it. I don't have to splash the cold water on my face anymore. Like I will give a big presentation to my team here this afternoon, and it's going to be a lot of financial information for them. It's like an open book accounting. We're an open book accounting company. So that once I could kind of get that, that weakness, I do think that made a big difference as well. And starting to just, a lot of this is just like psychology flipping.
No, and I think that's great advice is lean into what your weakness is and go for it because at the end of the day, it's your company
Yeah,
and you want to succeed. Thank
that's
you
right.
so much. So I've been talking with Mark Bealin, founder of SearchLab. Mark, thank you so much for sharing your story experience. I knew this was going to be a great discussion, but it's good to get to spend time with you and you shared so many amazing insights. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Heather. This was really fun. It's good to be with you.
Thank you for listening to the Growth Plus Exit podcast, sponsored by Newport, a unique national business advisory firm. If you enjoy this show, be sure to share, like, and subscribe for future episodes.